I think we can all say we've looked up to a pro rider at one time or another. Whether it was your favourite rider growing up or your favourite World Tour rider that you dreamt you could emulate. Some of us even go as far as buying the team kit or the team bikes. But where should we stop? Before you go slamming your stem and swapping chain sets, this is why you shouldn't set your bike up like a pro. Pro riders spend almost every day on their bikes, and when they're not on their bikes, they're training to be, you guessed it, on their bikes. They put hours and hours of work into becoming as flexible as possible so they can hold the most aerodynamic position for the length of their race. This means they can run longer stems and slam them as low as possible, putting themselves in a super aggressive position. Yoga, stretching, strength and conditioning, massage and a whole load of time spent on the bike all adds up to a rider who's conditioned to spend a long amount of time in that aggressive position. A regular rider like me or you wouldn't last 5 miles in that position without becoming extremely uncomfortable and possibly picking up an injury. Most of us are used to sitting at a desk working or walking and being very upright, not hunched over the handlebars. So I think we should leave those super aggressive positions to the pros. Pro riders will have a whole team of mechanics looking after their bikes with all the latest equipment in every size imaginable. They'll often swap components depending on the stage they're racing and have a lot of thought put into the gear ratio and wheels. Just because you see your favourite rider pushing a really hard gear with a really close gear ratio and a big dinner plate on the front does not mean you should. These riders are trained day in, day out with these extreme gear ratios, often training to their limit to become as fast as possible. A setup like this would not be suitable for 99% of us regular riders and would definitely not be doing you any favours at all. Find what works best for you. If you live in a flat area, then sure, use those big gears. But if you live in the hills like me, you're going to need that compact chain set. The UCI states that any components pro riders use must be available to the general public. But that doesn't mean we should rush out and buy it. Pro bikes are designed to gain any slight advantage over a course of a race or a single stage. They are not designed to be ridden for years in rain or shine and kept in the garage next to your lawnmower. Oh no. Oh no. Not to say they wouldn't last if you looked after them. Modern material science has worked wonders for the likes of carbon fibre. But if you're just going to do local rides or lock it up outside the pub or leave it in the shed, think about how upset you'd be if the lawnmower took a chunk out the top tube. Even with all that training, the pros still need looking after post-race. And I highly doubt you have a full-time masseur to go through all those tight spots after your ride. You want a bike you can just jump on and ride without giving you any grief. Comfort isn't priority for the pros. Their job is to ride their bikes and then recover from riding their bikes. Fortunately for them, they don't have a 9-to-5 job. Whilst they're training and recovering and getting ready for the next day training, we're sat at our desks with a sore back, cursing the fact that we went for that extreme position. The majority of the pro peloton will be using lightweight tubular tyres, which are great for decreasing that pesky rolling resistance, and they're great because you can run low tyre pressure for that extra grip, and they're great for reducing puncture resistance. If a pro did puncture, their team car is never far behind with a spare wheel. A quick swap and they're back on the road. Tubular tyres are glued on at the rim, and well, if you need to change one of these out on the road, it's pretty much impossible. You think changing a tube in the freezing cold is bad? Well, if you get a tubular puncture out on the road, quite far from home, this will pretty much be the end of your ride. Unless you're lucky enough to have your other half acting as your team car behind you. I would definitely stick to clinchers out on the road the majority of the time. Yes, you heard right, mudguards. You won't catch any pro riding with full-on mudguards in a wet stage of the Tour de France. Getting wet is a small price to pay for aero and weight disadvantages of the mudguards. However, if you want to be invited back on your local club run, I would definitely suggest fitting some to your bike. You're not going to be in anybody's good books if you're constantly soaking them with spray from your tyres. And not only that, once you're wet, you're going to stay wet for the rest of your ride. Mudguards can save you and your fellow riders from a miserable ride. And yes, I know if it's tipping down, there's not much you can do to stay dry. But if you've ridden on wet roads, you know how quickly a wet bum and wet feet can ruin your ride. Yes, the pros look super cool, and who doesn't want to impress their mates with just how flexible they are? But let's think of the effects of this. We ride our bikes to enjoy ourselves, not to be sore days after a ride. Let's leave the pro setup to the pros and just enjoy riding our bikes. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and let us know if we've missed anything in the comment section below.